Hi Lisa, can you share how you work with setting boundaries? Well, it's an ongoing process for me. Um, and being a teacher and being on the internet um, uh, has been super helpful. So the way in which I look at life, like I reconditioned myself a lot, and the way that I look at life is that everything that's an obstacle is there to help you bloom and to grow and to flower. And becoming present on the internet, I started doing it in 2011. And this has been such an amazing tool to help me set up boundaries. And when I started, I think I could say I had terrible boundaries. I'd just come out of very heavy spiritual conditioning, and my boundaries were most probably better than they'd ever been in my life to that point. Like it's so much better than when I was a child and when I was in my 20s. But I'd been into like really strong like spiritual conditioning that basically taught you to see everything as illusion, which is really beautiful and really helpful to an extent. But then I was so used to seeing that if any thoughts came up about other people being inappropriate or rude or anything, or any feelings of that came up, I tended to ignore them because I just thought, oh, it's old conditioning or it's not true. And I didn't even really notice I was doing it. It was more of a habit. And if I was just out in daily life, it most probably would have been fine if I were just at a job and was interacting in daily life. And I think in my life it was quite good, maybe. Still a little bit desired. But when you go onto the internet and you start sharing yourself publicly, it's a whole different realm. And especially if you get a little bit of success, like you stand above the crowd, so you're not just got like 5 people looking at your YouTube channel, you've got like a couple of thousand. What happens is that it draws people to you, and some of the people really desire to have personal contact with you because they're either seeking or they're in love, or maybe they hate you, which could be love as well. But they desire to have intimate or a relationship with you. And I can understand why that happens. It happens with people on TV. Like it's so intimate watching TV or watching this talk in your house like you are now. And I didn't really have any lessons or know how to deal with that. I tend to be really empathetic. So what used to happen is people would write to me about problems they had, and I felt compassion and empathy for them, and I wanted to write back and respond. And some of the people were really genuine, and after 1 question or 2 questions they would begin to disappear in the background. But some people used that as a way to get love from you and to get attention from you. And I could often feel it in my body, but because of my spiritual conditioning I was ignoring it to an extent. And because of empathy, like I overrode it. I thought, they need my help. So in some ways now, when I look back on it, I think that it goes to your head a bit when you become a teacher, because it always worked on me in the beginning that if somebody was asking for help, I felt like I needed to help them or give them advice. And that's such a trap. Like as if my advice or my help is going to fix them or be that great for them. Like it could help somebody, but it's also that maybe not having my advice would also be helpful. And I'm not just talking about me, but as any teacher, they can, in some way, it's an arrogance to feel like you want to help somebody. And so some people were really genuine. There'd just be an exchange, and it was really beautiful. But some people did it in order to get love from you, and I wasn't very good at determining that. And what it did over the years was that it always backfired on me. So if I didn't So if somebody was seeking for love from me in the questioning and kept on questioning and kept on trying to push their way into my life, if I didn't stop that from happening, it would backfire, and that person would eventually be disappointed by you and become angry with you and maybe turn hateful, or many different things. Or maybe they've tried to get you in business, or maybe they're playing out a karma with their parents of like wanting love and then kicking you for it, or not literally punishing you for it. And it never ever worked out. And so over the years, that like keep having like people wanting your attention, and then after a period like and like really like hammering you with this like negative energy. After that happened quite a few times, I began to really have to question my boundaries, and also like I used to do things where if people were like really verbally violent to me, I felt like I shouldn't ever delete their comments, and so I'd allow them to like keep comments up, and that then they would just keep posting and being abusive. And I felt like I wasn't allowed to delete their comments, because I felt like everyone should get a broad perspective, and if somebody really hates me, then they should be allowed to do that. But then if I was walking down the street or if I was in a talk, I wouldn't let it happen. But it just was like a silly mentality I got into. And then if people wrote me emails that were really hateful, I felt like it was my job to like be loving back, or to answer and to not be defensive, like to try and be open, and to, if you engaged kindly, it would change the person. But it doesn't change the person, more than likely. Like it was an arrogance on my part to ever think it could. And in a way, if that happened in the street, if someone's shouting and abusing you like continuously, you wouldn't write back or go up to them and be like, I love you, da, da, da. You would just put your hand up and say, no, that's inappropriate, and walk away. And I began to learn that, you know, responding with kindness actually wasn't necessarily the greatest kindness, or letting everyone in to try and help them wasn't necessarily help or kindness. Just putting up better and better boundaries. And that, you know, when, like often if somebody spinned out of control mentally and verbally with me, like as soon as they said sorry, I'd let them back in again. I'm just realizing that if they haven't been through a very big process of change, then that's going to keep happening again and again and again. And you can take it a couple of times, but there comes a point where you have to just cut people off and be hard. And it was so amazing learning all of this, because what I found repetitively again and again over the years, and in a way I always knew this, is that you've just got to trust the initial sensations in your body, not the reactive sensations. So not when you've like interpreted them and thought about it, like your initial sensation. Like I feel like now, if I'm really tuned in, which isn't always the way to my body, I can feel when somebody's beginning to be inappropriate, or I can feel when they're crossing a line or a boundary. And it's not something I need to think about that much. Maybe I need to think about how to handle them and how to handle that behavior, but I don't need to think about too much whether they are or aren't being. But it's still something I'm learning, and because of all my conditioning, I do tend to doubt myself. Like, so if I have initial feeling of no with someone, because I was conditioned so heavily in spirituality, like 10 years, you know, when I was really young, of not believing it's true, you know, is that true, and seeing it not to be true, there tends to be a part of me that wants to give the person the benefit of the doubt. Whereas really you've just got to trust your gut instincts, but not the reactive instincts. There's a difference. There's this place which is really natural and organic, and it feels like flow. And then there's this other more intellectual reactive place you can come from. Everything you've been talking about so far is everything that this... Oh, sorry, I didn't finish your question. Such a space cadet sometimes. Ishani. So my advice to you on boundaries is look carefully to your life as to what is producing anger or difficulties. Like I know when my boundaries being to cross with someone, it's like an anger, it's like a no. Or what create difficulties, like I described, somebody repetitively, like, or a repetitive dance that you're doing with someone again and again, where you ended up getting into difficulties or into an argument or into disharmony. And really look closely into that, your feelings and why you're doing it, and what belief structures you have, and really pay attention to your feelings. Okay.